Hey everyone, and welcome back to our series on efficient fillings mastery. In the previous part, we started laying the groundwork, and today we're diving into something crucial: how to actually enjoy doing fillings. Because let's be honest, fillings are a huge part of our daily work, but do we always find them fun, rewarding, or fulfilling? Okay, let's start this out with how we can make fillings more fun. Making something more fun is obviously very subjective. Thinking about what makes something more fun is actually kind of an interesting thought experiment. In my mind, when something is more fun, I would describe that as something that sparks enjoyment. It's satisfying. It presents a challenge, offers a sense of achievement, and there is some level of variation or novelty to it. Most dentists, when they do a filling, do the same thing over and over and over with no end in sight. I bet many of the dentists that have been doing this for 20 plus years, they're doing fillings exactly the same way with little to no improvement. I can guarantee that is about as far from my definition of fun as you can possibly get. Now let's talk about how to make fillings more rewarding. For something to be rewarding, there needs to be a very specific benefit in return for your effort. Something external or measurable needs to be the outcome. What I think of as rewarding relates more to the financial aspect. Dentistry is great, but if you can't make a good living doing it, then it is absolutely not worth dedicating all the years and years of education and going into incredible amounts of debt to make it happen. You have to make good money doing fillings, or of course, you're not going to enjoy them. This will be an area we talk about because most dentists will say, oh, I could do 1 implant or 1,000 occlusal fillings. Which one would you rather do? Wow, maybe a little dramatic, but in many cases, this is probably not too far off from the truth, and we have to change that. Let's talk a little bit about the fees and profitability of doing fillings. As you know, everything relates to your production per hour. The higher your profitability or production per hour, the more money you will make. In order to determine if a dental filling is rewarding, we have to figure out these numbers. So you need to find out your overhead cost per hour for your dental practice. In this scenario, let's just assume that you are practicing as a solo practitioner in your office. If you have a group practice or multiple providers, then adjust accordingly. First, you need to figure out the total costs your practice has per month. Then we will break this down more by the hour. This will be the total cost for everything minus any pay or take-home pay for you. For dental filling to be rewarding, it has to not only pay all of your bills, but also allow you to pay yourself decently well. Let's say your practice has a total expenses of $50,000 per month. Then let's say you would like to pay yourself at least $20,000 per month. You work 4 days per week and you work 9 hours per day. There are an average of 4.2 weeks per month, which means you work an average of around 151 hours. Let's round it to easy numbers, but this gets us to around $460 per hour that your practice needs to produce every day, every hour that you work, just to pay your bills and pay yourself what you want. Now, let's also say you have 2 chairs of hygiene that you do checks for. And if you do an exam on every patient for around $60 each, let's just say your clinical production now needs to be around $350 per hour, every hour. Obviously, we're not going for detailed numbers in this example, but this will get us pretty close. Now, in this example, that's not really that much, but this tells us that as long as we are producing $350 an hour or more, then you are getting good pay and paying the bills while doing dental fillings. Dental fillings typically tend to be lower overhead, but while your supply costs and everything else are approximately factored into this, let's just be aware that you probably should factor that in more precisely as well. It is a pretty helpful exercise to go through and add up every cost related to a dental filling procedure, just so that you know. Dental fillings tend not to be super expensive, but by the time you add up all of the disposables, burrs, and dental filling related materials, you'll likely be less than $20 per filling. However, it is really helpful to map this out in detail for your practice and your specific situation, just so you can be aware of the true costs and what they are. If you use expensive filling materials and bonding material and are pretty liberal in their use, it will definitely add up to more than this. So now you at least have a number in mind to help you figure out how to make fillings profitable and rewarding. Just to round up to cover supplies and make sure it's extra profitable, let's just use the number of $400 as your rewarding filling number. We'll discuss this more in the diagnosis and treatment planning section, but now you know that as long as you're scheduling your fillings in a way that you can produce $400 an hour, filling is now extremely profitable and rewarding for you as a provider. You control everything that you do in the dental chair and the way that you do it. You just have to be a little bit creative. This can relate to the diagnosing, but also to the scheduling. For a typical solid PPO fee schedule, this basically guides you to the fact that if you are doing at least 2 multiple surface fillings per hour, that gets you pretty close, if not above that threshold, for being at or above your production goal. It is probably going to be a minimum of 3 single surface fillings. So what happens if you have to do a single filling? Well, you can absolutely still do that, but just don't let that be an appointment that takes up your main production time in your schedule. Remember, we are talking about your production per hour. You can do more than one thing. I'm assuming most of you have more than one chair to work out of. So if a single filling is below your threshold because of your fees, then that single filling becomes a work-in procedure in a second chair. Now you can do single fillings, setting the patient's expectations accordingly that it's a work-in procedure in another chair, and you can fit that in whenever you're able. It will not hurt your profitability. Most of you would probably just schedule that single filling in your production chair and eat the losses. Now you've made a single filling potentially extremely profitable by putting it in a second chair and working it in. We'll talk more about this in the future though. Hopefully this gives you an idea of how to structure your scheduling in a way that accounts for your fees to make sure that you know doing fillings is extremely rewarding. When trying to make something fulfilling, I think of that as satisfying something, maybe something deeper inside of you, some deep personal intrinsic need. It aligns with your values or gives you a great sense of purpose or a great internal satisfaction. To make this work, this job fulfilling, you need to have the right mindset. And that is something that we will talk quite a bit about. I remember my first day of dental school, we had our orientation. We broke off into groups and we all sat down in a circle and started chatting. And the instructor started asking us different questions. One of the questions was, why did you go into dentistry? I remember my answer was different than everyone else's. It was so that I could make a good living. Everybody else was afraid to say something similar, and they all regurgitated some generic answer about how they wanted to help people improve their smiles, and I always thought that answer was pretty funny. However, after years of doing this, I now realize that maybe this wasn't the worst answer after all. There is so much going on in a dental practice that it can be easy to forget what you are really doing. The reality is that people are in pain, people have problems, and you are helping them fix those problems. That really is a very big deal. The more you can embrace and really pay attention to what you are doing day in and day out, dentistry really is a great profession. You are able to help transform people and improve their self-confidence. You get them out of pain and help them feel whole again. You really do have a huge impact on people. Making dental fillings and dentistry in general something fulfilling requires that you start paying attention to the people and what you are truly doing for them. Now, as we get deeper into the topic of dental fillings, we're going to talk about several main categories. We're going to talk about fees, diagnosing and treatment planning, performing the treatment, the patient experience, mindset and motivation. So make sure to watch the next video on your new journey to master dental fillings. Let's continue to work together to make dentistry more fun, rewarding, and fulfilling. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more.